here's the prepared naked bow, which I've tapered the ends of. All I need to do now, since I've sanded it, I actually use some steel, coarse steel wool to buff off any of the lettering, and then I just sand it with some nice coarse sandpaper. And at this point, we have basically the wood grain. I've been asked to make this one dark and on the reddish side, so the black and brown should mix just fine. I'm going to do 2 base coats of black shoe polish, and then I'm going to put on brown to make a nice dark finish. So let's start that right now. And another good thing about shoe polish is it's easy to remove. If you find out you don't like the results, you can always go back and just take it off. It's not something that's all that hard to do, since it's, well, especially just take the applicator that you're using and just rub it on. I mean, I can put on 3 or 4 layers, but if you're too rough with the later layers, you'll take off the earlier ones. You can use that to your advantage, of course. See, I like that. Nice effect. It looks sort of like wood grain. I mean, very much like wood grain. And once I start to blend the colors, it's going to look fantastic. So there we go. One limb's done. Go do the other limb. Let it dry. You can always hasten the drying with the heat gun. I tend to just let it sit for a few minutes. See, around the kinks, you tend to make a little jump like that. I like the effect. I think it looks more like natural wood when you have effects like that. You don't want a perfectly homogeneous, even look most of the time. You want it to look like wood. Wood has imperfection, grain, twists, knots. A neat effect you can get if you put some pebbles down, small pebbles, or better yet, sand grains down on the surface that you're pressing the board out on. You can get little dimples in the bow, and they'll look just like pins and knots. So if you like that sort of an effect, a little bit of sand can probably do the trick. But you really only want a grain here, a grain there, a grain here, a grain there. You don't want a bed of sand to do it on. Unless, of course, you want a whole dappled look, and maybe that is what you're going for. Okay, that's good. I'm just going to set this on the corner there, and I'm going to let it dry, or rather here. That's even better. I'm going to let that dry. After another coat, it'll be ready for the brown. We want this to be nice and dark and the grain to really pop. But we also want it to be dark, as I said. I'm going to go ahead and finish this, but I'm not going to go ahead and do any decoration on the limbs. They said they wanted to do that themselves. That's fantastic. This is a nice surface to do that on. Here I've gone and finished the bow. We have, actually I'm not sure, I'm actually talking with the person who asked me to make this to see what they wanted, if they liked this color, if they wanted it still darker. But for all intents and purposes, it is done. It's a nice wood grain finish, and it looks pretty snazzy. But I wanted to show you some cool trick that I have. That, you know, again, is something that I'm sure anybody could figure out. I don't take any particular credit for it, but it's helpful to communicate these things. Look how nice that looks. I think it looks really nice. You could even, sand that down and then fill it with something to make it look 100% cohesive. But as it is, I think it still looks really good. Take a look at the other side. This is what it started off as. And I'm going to show you how to take this and turn it into this with almost no effort. That's the best part. So we're taking this, taking the heat gun, and just do this. I put it on high heat. I blast this side for a second, up and down, one side, the other side, one side. Now take a break for a second and go to the sides. Angle it back so you're not splashing the front, and just heat like this. Go to the other side. Do the same thing. Make sure you're heating down near the bottom as well. And now just a little bit here, and you'll notice it'll pinch together almost on its own. That's exactly what you want to happen. There you go. You don't want it to uncurl completely. You just want it to start to lose some of that definition in the back, which is what we've done. So we just went ahead, and now I'll help it. I'll pinch it a little bit more, and that's basically it. Pinch the top since I overheated it a little bit, and it is losing some of its shape, but it's still plenty firm. The shape is still just fine. So let's just go ahead and I'll pinch it throughout from top to bottom. And just let it cool. And as soon as you're done, you'll have one that looks just like the other side. Might reheat it just to pinch the top a tiny bit more, but it looks really good. Once I've applied shoe polish, I don't like to run it under the cold water, but that's basically what you're left with. There's a slight red tint there where I assume the heat did something to the shoe polish, but that's the effect. That's how it ends up looking, and I think it gives just a fantastic appearance to the siyahs. Really, really nice and elegant. And if you were to do a little bit more finish work on it, it could look, yeah, not maybe nicer, but it would look different, and I think it would look equally good. And these are just different ways you can go about finishing your bow. This, I think, is just one of many nice ways. So I'm going to go ahead and just heat the very tip and pinch that shut. I don't need to show you that. The next time you see it, I'll be shooting this bow.